You can't trust anyone, no matter their age or how innocent they look. Here are some of the youngest people to ever make the FBI's most wanted list.
You disrespect her, you owe her some money, you're either gonna get your pockets checked or you're gonna get popped.
On March 31, 2007, the FBI sought the public's help in the capture of 24-year-old Shauntay Henderson, also known as Rashida Washington and Rashida Smith. She was part of the Kansas City criminal collective known as the 12th Street Gang and dealt in narcotics and weapons.
She was a corner pharmacy.
We sold ecstasy, crack, cocaine, meth, anything that we could get our hands on.
Henderson was placed on the federal law enforcement agency's 10 most wanted list because of her purported role in the September 2006 death of Kansas City man DeAndre Parker. Henderson approached a parked car and shot Parker in the chest 3 times with a semi-automatic handgun.
Shauntay Henderson said it was him or her.
I was scared I was going to lose my life.
On the very same day that the fugitive made the FBI's list, Henderson was arrested at a private home in Kansas City. The murder charge was eventually reduced to manslaughter, and Henderson was sentenced to probation. But in 2014, after she was arrested and charged with the crime of owning a gun as a convicted felon, a federal charge, a judge revoked her probation and ordered Henderson to spend 10 years in prison for Parker's death. In February 2010, 17-year-old MS-13 member Juan Elias Garcia killed his 19-year-old ex-girlfriend Vanessa Argueta and her 2-year-old son. Garcia claimed it started with an argument between them. Afterward, he was threatened by members of a rival gang to which Argueta was connected. That's when Garcia made a terrible decision. He invited Argueta to dinner, but then drove her and her son to a wooded area and shot her in the head. He then allowed a fellow gang member to shoot the 2-year-old as to not leave any witnesses, even toddlers. Garcia fled to Nicaragua. It wasn't until 2014, when he was 21, that the FBI finally put him on its 10 most wanted list. Just 2 days after his picture started appearing on wanted posters all over the world, Garcia turned himself in and was extradited to the U.S., where he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. In 1970, 21-year-old anti-war activists and roommates Susan Saxe and Katherine Power, along with 3 male friends, robbed a National Guard armory and bank. The plan was to give the money and weapons to the Black Panthers. But their plan got derailed when a bank employee activated the silent alarm and a Boston PD officer named Walter Schroeder responded, only to be fatally shot in the back by one of the male co-conspirators.
I just recall being, oh my God, we're in so much trouble.
Saxe and Power went on the run and were immediately added to the FBI's most wanted list. They were only the 5th and 6th women to ever make that infamous list, which as of 2026 has still included just 11 women. Saxe evaded capture for 5 years, but in March 1975, she was walking around downtown Philadelphia when a police officer recognized her from an FBI photograph and arrested her. She served 7 years of a 12 to 14-year sentence and was released in 1982. After Saxe was paroled, she went back to Philadelphia and got a job working for a Jewish charity. As for Katherine Ann Power, she turned herself in to authorities in Oregon in 1993. She pled guilty and served 6 years in prison. She lives in the Boston area and released a book in 2023 detailing her time on the run and how she's now a grandmother.
We've got what appears to be the beginnings of an outright revolution.
Most modern teenagers realize that blowing stuff up isn't a great way to make a political statement unless your goal is to gather firsthand knowledge about the nutritional content of prison food. But in September 1970, 18-year-old David Fine and his friends decided to blow up the Sterling Hall Mathematics building at the University of Wisconsin. The hall was targeted because the U.S. was still in Vietnam, and some of Sterling Hall's projects were funded by Army contracts.
The university should have broken that contract because that bombing was an inevitability.
Fine and his friends, who were suspected members of the radical Weather Underground movement, blew up the building just before 4 a.m., thinking no one in their right mind could possibly be working that late. They were wrong, of course, and the blast ended up killing researcher and father of 3 Robert Fosnacht. When Fine and his co-conspirators heard someone had been killed, they went on the run, and the FBI put them on the 10 most wanted list. Fine lived as a fugitive for more than 5 years until someone spotted him in California and tipped off the feds. The Sterling Hall bombing was the worst incident of domestic terrorism in the U.S. until the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. Including David Fine, there were a total of 4 men involved. The youngest was 19-year-old Dwight Armstrong, who joined the anti-war movement at the urging of his older brother Carlton. All 4 men were convinced that blowing up a campus building was the way to get the government's attention. They were right, but it probably didn't work out the way they intended. After the bombing, Armstrong and his co-conspirators went on the run, landing themselves on the FBI's most wanted list. Armstrong lived on the lam for almost 7 years before he was apprehended in Toronto. His sentence was ultimately pretty light. He served 3 years in prison before he was paroled. After another arrest, this time on a drug charge, Armstrong became a cab driver. His brother went on to become the successful owner of a sandwich shop and juice bar. So yes, you can blow up a building, kill someone in the process, and still lead a happy, productive life. The fourth co-conspirator in the Sterling Hall bombing was Leo Burt, who was radicalized after a police officer beat him while he was covering the protests that followed the killings at Kent State University. Generally speaking, getting beaten up by a police officer is high on the list of things that will make people angry, but Burt went a little overboard when he decided that the correct response was to blow up a building. Burt, who was around 22 at the time of the bombing, helped gather the supplies, build, and plant the bomb. After the explosion, he fled with David Fine to Ontario, Canada. The FBI tracked them to an apartment building in Peterborough, Canada, but they may have been tipped off because they managed to jump out a window and run just as police were closing in on them. As of 2026, more than 55 years after the Sterling Hall bombing, Burt remains at large, though he's no longer on the 10 most wanted list.
Some people may think after 40 years, are there still active leads? There are.
The FBI has posted a $150,000 reward for information leading to Burt's arrest. Another early entry on the FBI's 10 most wanted list was Joseph Franklin Bent, who at the age of 23 was described by the Associated Press as a hardened holdup man. Bent's MO was robbing stores. His criminal career dated back to his Army days when he robbed a post office substation in Colorado, which is why he was discharged from the military. He robbed so many different establishments, in fact, that at one point police thought he was 3 different people. Bent's life of crime continued until he was captured in 1950. He escaped that time, though, and shortly thereafter he found himself on the 10 most wanted list. Bent was finally apprehended in his apartment after an Alaska resident saw Bent's photo in Pageant magazine and told police Bent could be found in Mexico. Weird, considering the distance between Alaska and the southern U.S. border, but the tip panned out. The cops followed Bent to Texas. Police shot him in the leg as he tried to escape, ending his crime spree. And one more fun fact. Bent is evidently the dude who either coined or was an early adopter of a very famous phrase.
"You'll never take me alive!"
Yeah, but they did. Back in 1993 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, there was a string of pretty violent murders. One victim was found on a basketball court, shot 13 times. Another died in his car during a shootout. Those deaths were linked with a third murder because the victims had all been shot with a 9mm handgun. Police connected the crimes to O'Neal Vassell, a known member of the local gang, the Rats. Vassell went by the street name Yellow in his dealings with the rival gang named, obviously, the Cats. The Rats and the Cats were scrapping for control of the local cocaine trade. A warrant for Vassell's arrest was issued in 1993, but when he still hadn't been located by 1995, he was profiled on America's Most Wanted. In July 1995, the FBI placed the then 19-year-old Vassell on its 10 most wanted list. Over a year later, the NYPD found him hiding out in an apartment in Brooklyn. Vassell was convicted on 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He was sentenced to 120 years in prison. Early on February 19, 2008, police in Lake Charles, Louisiana responded to a horrific crime scene. Wanda Barton was a victim of a home invasion and sexual assault before she was brutally stabbed to death in the presence of her 4-year-old stepson. The suspect was her neighbor, Jose Manuel Garcia Guevara, an undocumented construction worker.
All the known facts indicate this was a horrible but random act of violence.
Officials believe that after the crimes, Guevara left the country and likely returned to his city of origin, Rio Verde, Mexico. Guevara was 20 years old at the time of the murder and 25 when he was added to the 10 most wanted fugitives list in June 2013. A little over a year later, Guevara turned himself into police in Mexico and the FBI extradited him back to Louisiana. In January 2015, a jury convicted Guevara of second-degree murder, aggravated rape, and aggravated burglary, and he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. In July 2016, on the north side of Milwaukee, a brawl involving at least 7 men turned deadly when one of them started shooting. Maurice Brown Jr. and Michael Reed were shot dead. Law enforcement determined that the gunman was Terry A.D. Strickland, and a warrant was issued for his arrest on 2 charges of first-degree intentional homicide. After it was determined that the suspect had fled the state, federal authorities issued another warrant for the crime of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. In December 2016, the FBI officially moved Strickland to its 10 most wanted list, naming the 24-year-old murder suspect one of the most dangerous fugitives in the country. About a month later, Strickland was captured after police in El Paso, Texas, pulled him over while driving.
It wasn't my intentions to hurt nobody.
Strickland surrendered peacefully and was sent back to Milwaukee for trial. He was convicted of 2 charges of first-degree intentional homicide, and in July 2017, he was sentenced to 60 years in prison. In July 2007, police in Columbus, Georgia responded to a crime scene where 2 men in an SUV had been shot in the head at close range. Detectives connected Michael Jason Registe, already wanted for aggravated assault, to the murders. A local arrest warrant went out, followed 3 days later by a federal warrant, when it became evident that Registe had fled the state or possibly the country to avoid arrest. A little over a year later, the FBI put him on its 10 most wanted list. While the suspect had used a variety of aliases and potentially fraudulent personal information, he was believed to be 26 years old, though he may have been as young as 19. 1 month after the FBI put Registe on notice, he was arrested on the island of St. Martin. Returned to the United States, Registe pled guilty and received 2 life sentences, served concurrently. One night in August 1996, Keith Dyer was walking with his friend Stacy Dooley near the UNLV campus in Las Vegas when he was shot and killed by 3 masked men. Police linked Tony Ray Amati to the murder after his blood was discovered near the scene. He'd cut his hand on a parked car while running away. Authorities also connected Amati along with 2 others to a May 1996 Las Vegas gun shop robbery and the shooting deaths of Michael Mata and John Garcia. All 3 suspects were apprehended in October 1996 after they tried to sell stolen guns to undercover law enforcement, but Amati posted bail and fled the area before police could get a search warrant for evidence connecting him to the murders. The FBI placed the 21-year-old fugitive on its 10 most wanted list in February 1998. A month later, he was arrested in Georgia and returned to Las Vegas, where he stood trial for Dyer's murder. He was convicted, and in 1999, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. 21-year-old Malcolm Lorenzo Jones made the FBI's most wanted list in 2017 for a good old-fashioned bank robbery.
Okay, and how can I help you?
We had a robbery, shots fired.
On May 22, 2017, Jones walked into a bank and pulled out a handgun, telling everyone to hit the floor. Then he opened the front door to let his brother in. But after he entered, the door was still left wide open and an off-duty police officer entered. After the 2 men exchanged fire, Lorenzo and his brother escaped through the front door, dropping $27,000 on the floor because they didn't bring a bag. Shortly after the robbery, Lorenzo was placed on the FBI's most wanted list.
There's a $10,000 reward on the table tonight for anybody who helps the FBI catch this man.
A few months later, Jones was captured and arrested in Ohio.
The FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading directly to the arrest of Alejandro Castillo.
In 2016, a woman named Sandy Lee loaned $1,000 to 18-year-old Alejandro Castillo, her co-worker at a Charlotte, North Carolina restaurant. Castillo promised to pay her back, but allegedly murdered her instead.
Police say the body found last week in the woods in Guevara County is the body of Sandy Lee.
Lee's bank account was completely drained and Castillo all but disappeared. According to the FBI, he was eventually spotted crossing the border into Mexico. When police failed to capture Castillo, he was placed on the FBI's most wanted list, giving him the dubious distinction of being one of the youngest people to ever wind up on it. Castillo was captured in Mexico on January 16, 2026.
Johnny, isn't that the brother of the guy who owes you money? You kidding me? Hello.
Hey, what's up? I didn't do anything.
The gritty 2006 film Alpha Dog is based on the true, unbelievably grim story of Jesse James Hollywood.
It's no wonder the Jesse James Hollywood case has received so much attention. Prosecutors say the story has it all: drugs, kidnapping, and murder.
Hollywood was the leader of a notorious drug ring in California. He was placed on the FBI's most wanted list when he was only 21 years old. A peer named Ben Markowitz reportedly owed Hollywood $1,200 but didn't feel obliged to pay. To settle the score, Hollywood and his crew allegedly kidnapped Ben's 15-year-old brother Nick in August 2000. Hollywood held Nick for 2 bizarre days, during which time he played video games and went to a pool party. 2 days later, Hollywood got nervous and had one of his cronies take Nick out to a remote location and fatally shoot him. But Hollywood didn't think everything through. Nick had been seen by a lot of people, so it was no secret who killed him. Hollywood fled to Brazil, where he lived for 5 years until authorities finally managed to track him down. His trial began in May of 2019, and by July, he narrowly avoided the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison.
Shanika Minor had no criminal record, but now she'll spend the next 3 decades behind bars.
In March 2016, Milwaukee resident Shanika Minor was reportedly annoyed that her neighbor Tamika Perry was playing her music so loud. The 24-year-old Minor confronted Perry on the sidewalk with a gun and fired some shots in the air. Minor reportedly felt like Perry had disrespected her family. The next day, she went over to Perry's house and shot her in the front yard in full view of her boyfriend and 2 children. Perry was 9 months pregnant at the time. Perry dragged herself into the house and died along with her unborn child. Minor fled the scene and was added to the FBI's most wanted list a few days later.
The FBI will provide all of our available resources to assist the Milwaukee Police Department in locating and apprehending this violent fugitive, Shanika Minor.
She was eventually apprehended in North Carolina and ultimately sentenced to 30 years in prison.
I just want to apologize to her family. Even if they don't choose to accept my apology.
Cynthia Freeman, the victim's mother, did not accept that apology.
She knew what she was doing. She lied about everything.